Peace and blessings, all. If you can hear me, let me know. Assalamu alaikum. That is the universal greetings of peace and blessings to you. Welcome to the On Point Weather Report, live and direct here, streaming on New Freedom Exchange, YouTube, and Facebook, New Freedom Network as well. We are live and direct, and also the Muslim Journal News as well. And tonight, we are going to hit a couple topics. If you are going to tune in, please share the stream to your friends and to your networks here. I will be taking some questions. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box below as well. So tonight, with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, again, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum to you all. My name is Imam Bilal. We're live here to discuss some quick topics. One, we are wrapping up the blessed month of Ramadan. As it departs, we are about to embark on one of our other major commemorations or celebrations, Eid al-Fitr, which marks the first day of Shawwal, will be when the moon is sighted, or the crescent moon that is sighted, and that will be Eid al-Fitr, which will start at around Maghrib or after Maghrib Salat, and that will complete our fasting period for those who have been observing the month of fasting during the month of Ramadan. So we're going to be discussing tonight what does the forecast look like for our commemoration of completion of the Ramadan, the completion of the fasting, and also a renewed sense of spirit, that we would like to carry out for the rest of the year. So hopefully the habits that we've built during this period of time is something that we can take with us into the month of Shawwal and to the other months of the lunar calendar as we go throughout. So we're going to discuss the Eid forecast, which is potentially be Wednesday for most. Some may be Thursday, but potentially for the lower 48 here in the United States, we're looking at Wednesday being the date for Eid for most masajids who are having the Eid prayer and their bazaars or fairs that will happen, and events that will happen on Wednesday. A lot of other events will be happening throughout the week, mainly on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. But we will have some activities happening on Wednesday for a lot of masajids across the country, and Islamic centers. Is looking like Wednesday here in the United States. There was no international moon sighting today. That usually, for those who go by the international moon sighting for Muslims, for the beginning of Ramadan and the end of Ramadan, we have to sight the crescent moon. So some follow the international moon sighting, some follow the local moon sighting. Either way, there's no problem in those two scenarios, whichever one you would like to go with. The international moon sighting, there was no international moon sighting today, put out by the Saudi Arabian government. So with that being said, that wasn't possible today because we had the total solar eclipse. So that infringed upon if there was going to be any moon sighting internationally, because we had the total solar eclipse that took place this afternoon. So that took that out of the realm of possibilities for international moon sighting. Now, and for those who are joined, please let us know where you tuned in, if you can hear us as well. How's our sound quality and how's the quality coming out? So if there are people tuned in watching, please drop in the chat where you're tuned in from, your name, your city, and let us know where you're tuned in from. Okay. Alaikum assalam, Sister Hajja Zakia Omar, Ramadan Mubarak, and soon to be Eid Mubarak, inshallah, God willing. So there was no international moon sighting today for those who follow international moon sighting. Now, we do want to discuss a little bit about and bring up the moon visibility, or the visibility curves for tomorrow night, Wa alaikum assalam, brother Khalif is with us. Alhamdulillah. That's Philadelphia in the building. And we have Haja Zakia Omar from Oakland, California in the building. So we'll go get to Oakland and Philly in just a second. But I did want to talk a little bit about tomorrow's. People are going to be embarking on sighting the moon tomorrow night. All right, at least here in the lower 48 here in the United States. Tomorrow we embark on seeing the moon tomorrow night. And with the passing of the total solar eclipse that we saw today, this afternoon, for many, a lot of us didn't see it or didn't see a total solar eclipse. We saw a partial solar eclipse, depending on where we were at. If we were outside of the totality of the moon, meaning the shadow of the moon, where the shadow passed along the earth, we didn't see a full eclipse. We saw a partial solar eclipse. Those cities who saw a full solar eclipse were those who were in the cone of totality as the shadow of the moon passed over us. It did cover some terrain, so it did get somewhat dark here in the city here in New York, but not pitch black dark. It was a darker gray type of sky. It was already clouds here already, so that infringed on watching the partial solar eclipse that we saw. But for those living in Dallas, Texas, those living in Indianapolis, around Indianapolis, Cleveland, up into Buffalo, and Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls went completely black. The sky went completely black, and because they were in the vicinity, the cone of the total solar eclipse. So we'll get to that in a second, because there might be some confusion as to why most people didn't see the eclipse last night. So, today. So there might be some confusion as to that. But needless to say, this was a once in a lifetime situation. It's a phenomenon that is naturally occurring, but doesn't occur on a frequent basis. The next one won't occur, total solar eclipse, to around 2079. 2079 will be the next one. There will be a partial one that will happen in next year in 2025. So there'll be another partial eclipse that will happen in 2025, but the total eclipse again will not happen until around 2079 or so, which is years away from here. Okay, so with that being said, I would like to go quickly into the moon visibility chart for tomorrow night, just to give everyone a sense of what to expect from. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. I'm going to do a lot of sharing tonight so you all can see it. This is an ad I don't want. So we're on moonsighting.com. We're going to go to visibility curves. The year is 1445 AH, that is after the Hijra. And we're going to go into SHW. SHW is the month of Shawwal. Okay. I'm going to make this screen a little bigger for us so you could see potentially. Okay. So now I'm going to click Tuesday. This is wrong year. 1445 H. Okay. Why is it giving me May of 1st, 2022? Okay, it's not allowing me to make this bigger. All right, so I'm on the second image to the right. This is Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. The image above is Monday, April the 8th, which is today. There was no chance to see the moon tonight. As you see, nobody had anything green, nobody had anything blue, nobody had anything under C or D. It was just completely black here across the earth. Now, the image below that, this image here is tomorrow night, Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, starting towards when the moon rises, Maghrib time. Around this time, we'll be looking for the moon in most parts of the world. It is green, meaning that it will be easily visible for the naked eye. This covers the whole United States, all the way down to Mexico, all the way down to South America, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to the to Africa, to the UK, and points Saudi, and in some of those areas in the Far East. So tomorrow we will be able to see the moon in the lower 48 without the usage of any optical aids, which is part of the practice. We don't use optical aids so to sight the moon. So Tuesday, that middle graph here is the map of the visibility curve for us to see that crescent. So everyone should be able to see the crescent tomorrow night in the lower 48, which means that Eid will be on Wednesday. Okay, that's that's what the visibility curve is saying. Okay, so enough with the moon sighting. If anyone has questions on that, we can discuss, and you can put it in the chat. But I just figured to let everyone know that's what's happening tomorrow night. So we stop sharing that. Now I want to transition to uh, briefly what took place today. We talk about a little bit about the total solar eclipse and what that means. What that means in terms of the science, but also in terms of the religious views of of an eclipse. Major religious views differ about the total solar eclipse. Some see it as an omen, something bad. Some see it as a time of practice to gain closer to God by praying. So in Al Islam, for us Muslims, when an eclipse happens, there is a prayer that we make, the Salatul Kusuf prayer. It is a prayer that's not mandatory or fard. It's not fard, meaning mandatory or obligatory, but it is something that the Prophet Muhammad, prayers and blessings be upon him, did say not to make the eclipse a superstitious phenomenon. What happened was that when he lost his son Ibrahim, the companions wanted to comfort the prophet, and in their comforting, they alluded to that an eclipse had happened upon the passing of his son. The prophet corrected them and said, "No, that is not how we do it. That is not how we view the eclipse. We view the sun and the moon as signs from God, signs from Allah, and not to attach what happened with my son to an eclipse, because that will make this phenomenon seem to be some sort of superstitious type of thing. This is a natural phenomenon that does occur, not often, but it does occur in one's lifetime, a total solar eclipse. So what we saw today is that we saw various masajids host the Salatul Kusuf prayer inside. And you pray that prayer from the beginning of when the eclipse starts to when the eclipse should be wrapping up or ending. Okay? So this is 2 rakats, elongated. This is an elongated prayer. This is a very elongated prayer. After Al-Fatiha, for those 2 rakats, you recite 2 long surahs, any 2 long surahs in the Quran, and then you go throughout the rest of the movements of the prayer, but they're all elongated. They're all elongated. Especially the first rakat is really elongated, and the second one is a little bit less elongation, but the first rakat is long elongation of the prayer. Okay, so that's what happens in Al-Islam when we see these things happen. It's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of pondering. It's a moment of thought, not just the oohs and wows of the phenomenon, because the phenomenon is really cool when you look at it and look at the pictures that people have been sharing and capturing. SubhanAllah, we give all glory to God, because this is all part of His creation. These are all signs for us to ponder about and to reflect on these occurrences. And science has drastically improved to where now we get to see the phenomenon happen live on Facebook and YouTube. thanks to the invention of the telescope and high-level telescopes and telescopes that show the whole processes without infringing on your eyesight. Because if you do not wear the glasses that are specially for the eclipse glasses, it will affect your eyes, it will affect your vision if you look directly at the sun, especially during the point of the beginning of the eclipse, and then at the end of the eclipse, when the moon is moving away from the sun and the sun is starting to show. So these are some important factors here, and the sun goes through various cycles. We're not going to get to all of the cycles of the sun and all the processes of the sun and the layers of the sun, because the sun has a multitude of layers, several layers to the sun. It's different than the earth, but very cool to look at and to study the corona, the different parts of the sun, and what makes up the sun and its various components. The sun is the closest star to us. The sun is the closest star to us here on Earth, and it's the biggest, and it is the hottest, and it goes through activity. It goes through a minimum activity, then it goes through a major activity. And through the major activity, it gives off solar flares, which do reach the Earth. It has happened years past. In 2012, we had solar flares come down, and it affected our telecommunications, knocked some of the telecommunications off, completely off, because of the magnetic fields that the sun project. This is the beauty of God's creation, and it's not to get spooky about it, but this is really in-depth things here, astronomy wise. When you study the sun, you study the earth, you study the moon, and God says for these, the sun, the moon, and the earth, they follow an exactly computed orbit. An exactly computed orbit, right? And then the earth is at a tilt, right? And if the earth wasn't at the specific tilt that it sits on, it's sujud, or it's bowing, because everything in God's creation has its own mode of prayer. Its own mode of prayer. And this is our earth sits at a unique tilt. And if it wasn't at that tilt, or a slightly different tilt, or a slightly higher or lower tilt, can make a major difference in if this planet was to be inhabitable. And if the sun wasn't at this position that it's at now, see, this is the mercy of Allah, mercy of God. The mercy of God is that everything is aligned in a very specific manner that only God can do. Everything is aligned in a very specific manner that only God can do. The sun sits where it's at. The earth sits where it's at. The moon is where it's at. Everything follows an exactly computed orbit. It's exact calculation down to the exact T. And this is mercy for us here on this earth, because this earth is habitable. We can live on it. Plant life can survive. We all can survive here on earth. But imagine that if that wasn't the case, that this place would not be inhabitable. But Allah made it so that this place is habitable, and that the creation around it follows in an exact orbit and doesn't get out of its mode of prayer. It stays in its mode of prayer all the time. And it follows those exactly computed calculations, and is always in its own mode of prayer. And we need to, when we talk about study, we'll talk a little bit more about the sun at a later point of time, and we will make the connections to the Surah Al-Shams in the Quran, where it talks about the sun, and we talked about the moon. All of these things I mentioned in our revealed scripture that came down to mankind, the Quran, as the last revelation to mankind, and details this science to a T. Before we even discovered these things were already being talked about and revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that being said, we want to shift gears a little bit now to talking about Eid, our weather exactly for Eid, and what to expect for Eid, right? Everybody wants to know what is the weather going to be like for Eid? What should we wear? All of that good stuff. Obviously, we are a very creative people. Everyone gets creative for Eid, no matter what culture you're a part of. It's a really it's a celebration, commemoration of our fasting, to please Allah, to please God, but also to become better as human beings. So, with that being said, we're going to share the screen, and we're going to go through some of the models here, some of the guidance that we have available to share with you all, and hopefully this will become a better informed. You can become better informed as to what to expect for us in the lower 48. And if you have questions, again, you can put them in the comment section. Let us know if you have any questions, and also let us know where you're tuned in from so we can discuss your city. But we're going city to city tonight, section by section, region by region, and we're going to lay it out as much as we can, and hopefully it'd be of benefit to you all. So we can go to our good friends at Forecast Tidbits or tropicaltidbits.com. Shout out to Tropical Tidbits, who allows us to use the site, which is open to usage. So thank you for that. So what we're looking at now is the American model, or the GFS computer model, that is we follow for guidance in relationship to the forecast for, as it relates to the surface, what goes on with the weather in terms of if it's raining, if it's snowing, things like that. So we're already on hour 6 of this. This goes already out to hour 384, but some of that material is not loaded up yet, so we can't go further out. That's too far away anyway. We really are concerned about what's happening in the next few days or so. So we're gonna put the computer model into motion. I'm hoping people can see it. I may need to make this a little bit bigger on my end. Okay, let me go down a little bit on my end, if I can go down. There we go. Sorry. Okay, so give me 1 second. There we go. All right. So we are at, again, hour 12. We're going to move it up to, this is Tuesday. We're seeing some rain, some storms, and storm system developing here down south in Texas, also in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama with rain. And I don't think everyone is seeing the bottom part of the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing because I want to make sure everyone sees the screen. You're not seeing the bottom; it's kind of cut off. So let me stop share, and then I'm going to make it its own tab or its own situation, and then that way we could see it better. Okay, 1 second. All right, now we should be able to see it better as its own standalone. Okay, and I'm gonna make this bigger. All right, we're on full screen right now, and this is better. So now we get to see the whole map. And I was mentioning before about the system that's in the south. This is another storm system that's going to take shape on Tuesday, with rain and thunderstorms in around northern Texas, getting into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, up into Tennessee. And that's hour 12 of the radar. We're going to get to hour 18. Again, this is some darker yellows and reds are going to be heavy thunderstorms or heavy rain embedded thunderstorms with this. Again, and getting into Little Rock on going into Tuesday in our pattern. No, I want to make sure everyone noticed that basically on Tuesday, exceptions for the south, as you see with this rain from Texas into Arkansas, Tennessee Valley. The northeast, Mid-Atlantic, northeast and New England region remain dry up into the Midwest. Excuse me, the central portion of the states. The West Coast mainly is dry too, with the exception of the Pacific Northwest, where we get some rain, some showers getting up into Seattle and Portland. But outside of that, these two areas of precipitation. On Tuesday, the weather-related events will be minimal in terms of trying to sight the moon. So at least weather-wise, the rain will be in the areas of the South and the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we get into hour 30, we're now into Wednesday morning. This is the Wednesday early morning hours of Wednesday. And as you see, the storm system is still impacting the South with rain. And we want to tell everyone that this system is going to linger a lot. It's going to be lingering quite a bit with giving rain to the South. So I want to say, if you're in Oklahoma City, if you're in Dallas, if you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, if you're in Memphis or Nashville, our Wednesday is looking to be, our Eid day is looking to be very wet and dangerous, because we might see impact of severe weather or thunderstorms packing some wind and some hail, especially as we get to the Gulf Coast and around Houston, going into Shreveport, Louisiana. We could see some heavy thunderstorms on Wednesday. And we're going to talk a little bit about the threat of severe weather and the possibilities of severe thunderstorms for this region. But just to let everyone else know that weather-wise in the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, the Dakotas, no, everything looks great in terms of weather wise, in terms of no rain, for if anyone is planning any outdoor activities. The West Coast remains dry. So if our brothers and sisters out in Cali, down to Phoenix, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, it looks good. And even throughout Wednesday period, what showers we were seeing in the Pacific Northwest will start to clear out as we go through Wednesday, up in Seattle and Portland, Oregon, and etc. So Northeast, at least on the American GFS, we'll probably have more clouds with some showers on Wednesday scattered around the region. But no, at least right now, it doesn't put out any heavy, copious amounts of rain in the Northeast region. At least not the GFS doesn't. The American model doesn't produce that. But we're getting pounded on Wednesday going into Thursday. These darker reds, I'm very concerned. The darker reds and yellows for our brothers and sisters down in Louisiana going to Mississippi, just Jackson included, again, Shreveport, and our brothers and sisters getting up to Arkansas. I'm very concerned about this particular system and the impacts it will have on this region on Wednesday going into Thursday. And we're going to advance this to hour 54. And that severe weather threat, these darker reds shift as you see more eastward, getting now into Birmingham and Alabama, points southward into the beginning of the Florida Panhandle, and also down to Biloxi and Mobile. We have this threat of severe weather, and it only gets worse. The weather gets a little more heavier going into St. Louis. Now we're getting St. Louis into the action, and now we start to begin to get some Springfield, Illinois. We can start seeing rain there. Start seeing rain in Indianapolis as well going into Thursday. For any festivities planned on Thursday, be aware and cautious that this rain is going to eventually get up into Chicago on Thursday, and eventually into Detroit also on Thursday, and eventually this system moves due east but becomes very strong in nature, with severe weather definitely being a threat, moving towards Georgia, getting probably down to Savannah in southern Georgia and the northern portion of this panhandle of Florida. Meanwhile, with rain and more likely wind also be a factor in Chicago, getting up into Detroit and into Cleveland. This is hour 66 of the radar. And this is all day Thursdays. This is just progression. We're just moving progressively into Thursday now, and the rain becomes more widespread in the Midwest, in the Ohio River Valley, and then eventually, wow, the system really, really winds up. As you pay attention to, I want everyone to pay attention to these little lines, these little red lines. These are isobars, measures the storm's wind capacity and we really have a really winded up storm going into Michigan, bringing a windswept rain for a lot of people in the Midwest and Ohio River Valley on Thursday going into Friday time period. And I want everyone to shift now. The West Coast, as you see, is not really impacted much within these next few days. With the exception of the Pacific Northwest, we might see some rain creep in on Friday into this region. But Friday probably is the best chance that we will see some copious amounts of rain coming into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region. So that's upstate New York, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and down Pennsylvania, New York City, New Jersey, all the way down to DC and Baltimore. So rain will come in and impact the region going into Friday of this weekend. And it will stick around throughout Friday. Hour 96 now. We're now getting close to Saturday. Saturday, we start to dry out, but we're left with some showers in and around, again, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and some of that getting into the coastal areas as well, New York City, Long Island, etc. We also left, remember, with some more wind. So Saturday will be progressively windier in the whole region of the Northeast and New England region. And we will have some lake effect snow or some snow coming off the lakes because of our storm system is windly packed tight. We might still see some winter-like precipitation in the region coming up around just off of around Buffalo or so. We'll get some of this snow in that region. And then as we get to progressively through Saturday, this storm system moves out, clears out, and most of the United States gets dry as we head into our Sunday, with the exception of everyone is dry throughout the whole region on Sunday. And then we will have a storm system start to make its approach on Sunday to California, bringing in rain into California. And if we keep going further out in this radar, it will show more of that rain. But we won't go too far out because it will get a little more inaccurate as we go about the time period. I want to stop sharing and I want to go back to my screen to see if we have any questions and comments. And I want to get out of the screen here and into the better screen. Okay, 1 second. If anyone has any questions or comments so far, I know there's some big events happening for Eid. Eid Fest is happening in Atlanta on Saturday the 13th, a big outdoor festival happening on Saturday the 13th. And people probably want to know what to expect for Saturday the 13th. As we looked at the radar of the GFS model, we're going to get to the temperatures in a second as to what to expect temperature-wise, but we wanted to go over precipitation wise for the United States. And we wanted to narrow down some of the expectations for our regions. And with the storm system coming to affect a lot of people in the South with some heavy rain. So I want to know and again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. But we're going to get to the temperatures right now and also the outlook for any severe weather heading towards our brothers and sisters in the South as they prepare for Eid. We also want to be mindful of the possibility that they could see some severe weather, which could impact their plans for Eid. But we wanted to talk a little bit about what to expect in the weather-wise. So Friday and Saturday, it looks like we'll be able to get the Eid Fest in Atlanta. So outdoor activities on Saturday look to be good. Friday for Atlanta, at least, we'll clear out. We'll see the sun on Saturday in Atlanta with highs getting close to 70 degrees. And then Saturday, we'll keep the highs in the 70s. We'll actually I have 75 degrees in Atlanta with bright sunny skies. So Eid Fest in Atlanta looks really good on Saturday. We're really concerned more so about Eid Day being a stormy, but it seems as though for Atlanta will be okay. On Wednesday it'll be cloudy, but the rain starts to come in a little bit later in the day. But it'll be mainly cloudy with 77. Will be close to 80 degrees on Wednesday for Eid Day in Atlanta, and then Thursday that thunderstorm threat that we talked about is moving across the South. This week will start to impact Georgia on Thursday of the second day of Eid. So the second day of Eid looks to be a wet one, but certainly a stormy one for Atlanta. We also have the brothers and sisters in Oakland and Philly and other places. So we won't get to that right now. Actually, to talk about the temperatures for our um, our Eid and what to expect in terms of that, and I'm pulled that up. But also in the interim period of time, I wanted to also talk about the threat of severe weather, thunderstorms packing a punch in the region. So we're going to pull up the mesoscale forecasts for severe weather uh, coming up, and we want to discuss that in some detail with you all and talk about the convection outlook for the need period of time. And I have, yes, here we go. I have the convection outlook up. So now I'm gonna share the screen now, and we're gonna go through that. Uh, we're gonna go through that screen. So here we go. So this is our Storm Prediction Center outlook from the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman, Oklahoma. And we're going to go into day 1, day 2, and day 3 of this 3-day convection outlook. This monitors the threat of thunderstorms and what we talked about happening with the storm system coming in the south. We talked about the risk of severe weather. And right now, this is the convection outlook day 1, and this is for tomorrow afternoon going into the evening. We will see an enhanced threat of seeing severe weather in around Dallas tomorrow. And slight that's indicated of this darker like reddish color here that says ENH, that stands for enhanced threat. And then this yellow portion down here is down all the way down to central Texas, and then eastward to northern Louisiana, southern extreme southeastern portion of Arkansas, and getting somewhat into southern Oklahoma. A slight chance of seeing thunderstorms. So we will have a risk of seeing severe weather in Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Plano, and Garland, Texas tomorrow, and a slight risk in San Antonio, Austin, Lubbock, Killeen, and Midland, Texas tomorrow. And that will, according to the storm convection, the threat will be very large hail remains the main threat, and a possibility of a few tornadoes. Okay. So there's a possibility that we could see some tornadic activity with some of these thunderstorms that develop tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening in Texas. Very large hail with these storm systems, so be very careful being outside in this type of weather, and also be very mindful of the radar as warnings and watches are issued for tornadic activity. You want to be prepared to take shelter immediately if there's a tornado warning for your city or county, to find the nearest bottom portion of your home and away from windows as much as possible. And you want to protect yourself by putting something over your head body, blanket, things of that nature to protect yourself from any blowing debris. And the weather radios, let's not forget that the weather radio is very good, because if power goes out, your weather radio will maintain a signal to allow for special emergency updates to come in as they happen. So that's why it's very important to have a weather radio in case power does go out, which a lot of times things like that, power lines go out, tree falls in the power line, that knocks the power out to thousands and thousands of customers. So you want to be prepared to have your weather radio on deck with you, just in case. Convection day number 2, we still have now the enhanced threat now has moved slightly southward and eastward. It now includes the city of Houston, the cities of Austin, Pasadena, Waco, and Beaumont, Texas now are in a more enhanced threat for thunderstorms on E-Day. On E-Day. And a slight risk, again, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, and Plano will still maintain a threat to see some more thunderstorms also on Wednesday. So our Wednesday activities outside in Texas looks to be not too good. Actually, can be dangerous. Can be dangerous. Because we have to monitor for any tornadic activity that could pop up on our day on Wednesday. Let's read the language. The language says severe thunderstorms are expected from Tuesday through Wednesday morning across most of Texas towards the lower Mississippi River Valley. Several tornadoes, or a couple of which should be strong, significant large hail, and damaging winds are likely. Okay, so let's be very mindful of watches and warnings as they come out so we can be aware and prepared for the weather in Texas going into Louisiana. Now, day 3. Day 3 is later Wednesday going to Thursday. All right. This is later Wednesday overnight going into Thursday morning. And now the enhanced risk has shifted from Texas into include Shreveport, Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Mobile, Jackson, Mississippi, and Materia, Louisiana. Excuse me. So this threat again, hail, large hail, damaging winds, and the possibility of tornadoes is possible Wednesday night going into Thursday morning. The most dangerous activity that happens with thunderstorms producing tornadoes is at night, because at night is where we are resting. We are resting at night. So when we are resting at night, we do not get the warnings come in. We don't get the warnings. So that's why having a weather radio is so important, because when the warnings come in, if power is knocked out, you'll be able to get the warnings, right, as they come. And it's a loud noise that the weather radio will make. So it will wake you up, hopefully, from your sleep. So Wednesday night to Thursday, this is Eid still with us. This is Eid day. This is Eid day going to Eid day 2. With the possibility of seeing strong thunderstorms, high risk, enhanced risk in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Mobile, Alabama, and Jackson, Mississippi, come Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So that's to be kept in mind if we're going to, again, be outside or participate in activities. We want to know what the weather looks like in terms of our safety. All right, so that's what we're looking like in terms of that forecast. Now, let's also talk about these temperatures. So we got into the severe thunderstorms. This is very important that we pay attention to this forecast. Very important. I want to talk now about our temperatures now, what to expect for Eid day weather-wise. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen as we have received that information. And now we're going to go into our air temperatures for Eid day. Get out of here. So I pulled up the the national. I'm gonna put up here. This is. Let's see if I can change the date. I want to get overviews. Okay. I have it up now. So we're going to share screen for the temperatures for the next couple days. All right. So this is the graphical forecast for temperatures. This is 8 a.m. Tuesday morning, and we'll be waking up. And I want to pay attention to the greens here, the greens between 50 and 60 degrees roughly. The yellows are 70s, so air temperatures in the 70s. The darker yellows going into oranges are at 80-degree temperatures. And from the dark orange into the reds, we're talking about above 80, above 90-degree temperatures. Anything below in this blue colors, from blue all the way to pink, are temperatures in the 40s, darker blues 30s, going to the darker purple 20s, and then eventually getting into the teens and below that. So as you see, the West Coast on Tuesday morning, you'll wake up temperatures in the Rockies, the Northern Rockies down to the Central Rockies, Southern Rockies, Pacific Southwest. You're going to see temperatures fall into the 20s and 30s, and maybe some teens in here too, in the Rockies. Our friends in around Pacific Northwest looking like in the 40s, all the way down to Oregon as well. We get into the 40s, and you see out ahead of in the warmer section of the country, there's the mid Ohio River Valley getting into the south and southeastern section of the United States and getting into Texas, where all those thunderstorms will be forming. You have to figure that we have also one of the recipes for tornadic activity for thunderstorm development is warm air temperatures. And at 8 a.m., it's already going to be in the 70s in Houston, down to Galveston, all the way to eastward to Baton Rouge and New Orleans. In the 50s, in the 60s, between the 50s and 60s, in the rest of the Southeast region. And then even in Florida, you wake it up to the 60s, down to southern Florida, possibly waking up in the 70s on Tuesday morning. Going to move this up a little bit. If we can move this up. I need to get to Wednesday. Give me 1 second. We're still on. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're going to get to Wednesday now. And in fact, why does that skip? Thursday. Good. We need to get to Wednesday. There's Wednesday. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're on temperatures. Why does it look like this? Yeah, okay. Let's do this apparent. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, this looks more familiar. All right, so Wednesday morning, Eid morning. What can we expect waking up Eid morning? Okay, let me set that 8 a.m. Okay, it's being a little wonky now. Very sensitive. Okay, now what can we expect for Wednesday morning? Waking up. So we're going to be waking up to in the southeastern portion of the United States. You'll be waking up to temperatures in the 60s when you wake up in the morning for Eid prayer. At 8 a.m. takbir, 8:30 takbirs, around that time frame. Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Little Rock, Arkansas, and Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, you'll be waking up to the 60s for the most part. New Orleans, you'll be waking up to the mid 70s. In portions of southern Florida, you'll also be waking up to the mid 70s, 70-degree temperatures. but for the most part, generally the state will be waking up to the 60s. We're getting up to the northern Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, New England region, Northeast, we'll be waking up temperatures in around with the darker greens, this green color here, waking up into the 50s or so. With the exception of New England, you might be waking up to the 40s or 30s in the morning. And that temperatures of the 50s degree temperatures would get back into between 40 and 50 degrees into Detroit, into Chicago, St. Louis, etc. So it's going to be a little chilly, a little nippy. You go out for Eid prayer on Wednesday morning. Now, as we get progressively, that's relative humidity. When we get progressively throughout the day, I'm sorry, this one is very sensitive. These graphics are very sensitive. So when we get to Wednesday, 11 a.m., temperatures start to moderate. We'll already be in the 80s in southern Florida already. That's down here, these darker reds. Oh, that's 2 o'clock. Well, let's go to 2 o'clock. Let's keep it at 2 o'clock. Okay, 2 o'clock. Progressively warmer throughout the country. Darker yellows, Chicago, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Detroit, Minneapolis. You'll get off to a chilly start, but by 2 o'clock, you'll be in the 60s. And generally speaking, all the way until Pennsylvania and all the way almost into getting to New Jersey and New York City, Long Island, you'll start to warm up too, with temperatures going to the mid 50s, almost into the 60s as well. Excuse me, sorry. With temperatures in the still maintaining chilly up into the New England region, where you're still hanging around to pockets of those 40s as well, to Maine and New Hampshire. But Florida, basically the whole state from Miami to Jackson, about 2 o'clock, you'll already be in the 80s already by 2 o'clock. And in Atlanta, you'll be in the mid 70s, almost to 8 degrees at on Wednesday this is after Eid Salat. So any activities after Eid Salat, if you're going outside, if it's not raining outside and it's not thunderstorms outside, it's safe for you to go outside in the South, you'll be able to enjoy this warm, considerably warm weather in the South. And that always stretches into New Orleans, also the mid 70s as well, Baton Rouge, all the way down to Galveston and Houston. We ought to be up into around 80 degrees, and even some of those 80s and upper 70s, 80s get into South Carolina, North Carolina as well, as indicated by the darker orange colors you'll see on the map. At 5 o'clock now. 5 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll see that the South is pretty warm. Florida is to maintain the 80s. Atlanta, Georgia rather, the whole state, South Carolina, North Carolina. Basically, that southern region, 70s and 80s galore. 60s still dominate in the Midwest and the Ohio River Valley and the central portion of America. Out to the West Coast, out to Cali. Well, let's do Phoenix. Phoenix, you'll warm up to the 80s by 5 o'clock. You'll be in the 80s as well, down to across that state line, Southern California. We'll be closer also to the 70s and 80s for some of the inner portions of the state. And the same thing goes up the state. We'll have 60s and 70s, depending on where you are in terms of if you're closer to the water or closer inland to the coast. Exception is the Pacific Northwest and the Rockies, Northern Rockies, where we'll still hold on to some chilly weather with temperatures in the 50s and 40s. And that's for our Wednesday time period. Our 8 o'clock hour, we're starting to cool off a little bit. And now we get to 11 o'clock. Temperatures fall down into the 60s in the South, still maintaining 70s in Florida. Northeast, still maintaining the low 50s. Maine, you might get into the low 40s, upper 30s. Everyone starts to cool off for those who were hot. And we go overnight. Now we prepare for Thursday morning, and we're waking up into the Rockies. Notice the Rockies maintain cold air in the Rockies with temperatures in the 30s, maybe 20s, waking up in the morning. We'll wake up to, see, I don't like that. Okay, I lost my screen. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so yes, you'll wake up to, in Chicago, In Detroit, temperatures in the upper 40s, 50s, all the way down to St. Louis, all the way down to perhaps OKC, Texas. Remember, if it's cooler in this area down south, remember Texas is going to get that rain, so now the temperature's starting to cool off a little bit. Okay, as we head into Wednesday and Thursday, and the warm air is now centered in the southern portion of the states, the southeast, with Florida and Atlanta still being maintaining those 60-degree morning temperatures to start getting into the Mid-Atlantic region as well, and maybe some of the upper Ohio River Valley will have temperatures in the 60s as well. Now, I want to move this up a little bit in time. We're getting to mid-late morning on Thursday morning. We are scorching hot in Miami and in Jacksonville, down to the Keys, with temperatures already in the 80s. And please do remind that those thunderstorms will be moving progressively throughout the South. Where these warm temperatures are, will be feeding into the weather that you'll be eventually be receiving in terms of thunderstorms in and around the South. So on Thursday, we are prepared now to receive thunderstorm activity in and around central Alabama and going into Georgia. So while it's warm, the con to that is that it's going to fuel these thunderstorms to develop and feed them really nicely on Thursday. And you'll see as we move in time here, if I can ever move in time. Okay, there we go. Okay, here we go. We move in time to around 8 o'clock Thursday night. We're still muggy, still warm in the south, and 70-degree temperatures still in Florida, and still holding on to that warmness in Georgia. But we are progressively still in the 60s for most of the Ohio River Valley and the Midwest, and the West Coast, we're down to the Four Corners region, southern Arizona, getting to southern Cali, up to Central Valley. We maintain that gradient here, with the 80s being in Southern California, and also in southern Phoenix and Flagstaff, Arizona. You'll maintain the 80-degree temperatures going into 8 o'clock hour on the Thursday time. Oh, excuse me. On Thursday, see, I was on Wednesday. See, you know what? Okay. On Thursday, the same thing. Thursday, 8 o'clock, 80s, Flagstaff, Phoenix, LA, and then Central Cali, and retain the 60s for most of getting into some of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region for our Thursday time period. And lastly, we'll get into Friday real quickly. What to expect Friday morning when you wake up on the 12th. When we wake up, we have some cooler air getting to the central portion of America. That's around Minnesota, Minneapolis. You'll be waking up and feeling even more chilly here, with temperatures in the 30s to low 40s. And that's North Dakota, South Dakota as well. And in Chicago, it might feel a little nippy as well, waking up with the darker greens here, the lighter greens in the 40s. Oh boy, I lost my screen again. Come on. Get back to the air temperature. There we go. All right. Yes. So you'll see that progressively 50s and 50s in Chicago on our, excuse me, yes, 50s in Chicago on our Friday morning. Might be a little chillier than that. And if this thing doesn't get on my nerves sometimes, but if Chicago, I mean, like I said, Chicago will be in the 40s and 50s for wake up call, and sitting with Detroit, 50s more so down into the central portion of America, down to Texas, down into Mississippi and into Alabama, holding on to the 60s in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region. And Florida is holding on to those 70s, the last ones to get cooled off because of this weather. And eventually at 2 o'clock, will get considerably more milder, in fact, warmer in Texas. Darker oranges and color, darker orange color, indicative of 70 to 80 degree weather in most of the state, and also get into Louisiana, and also again Florida still maintains its heat, and also Phoenix as well, and Southern California still maintains that type of weather in terms of the temperatures. And at night, still blazing hot in Texas. And in fact, OKC may touch almost 80 degrees on Friday, getting into Kansas as well on Friday, and maintain the heat in again out towards the West Coast, mainly Phoenix, Flagstaff, and Southern California, parts of Southern California inland, and then also maintaining our cool weather in the 50s and 60s on Friday. But do know that the rain in the northeast Atlantic will be impacting, so that's why it's cooler in those areas, because we will have rain on those days. So that is your temperature forecast for Eid, for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Alrighty, so we covered tonight our forecast for Eid. We talked a little bit about the total solar eclipse, which occurred today. And we also talked a little bit about the moon sighting visibility curves for tomorrow night, Tuesday night. If you're going to look for the moon Tuesday night, please pay attention to your weather. I do not think we won't be able to see the moon if you're in Texas tomorrow night. If you're in parts of Louisiana tomorrow night, parts of Arkansas perhaps also tomorrow night, you will not be able to see the moon in your region tomorrow night. The moon can be sighted in areas where there is no rain and no cloud cover. We didn't discuss the cloud cover forecast for the United States, but in event that there is clouds, you won't probably be obscured view of the moon for tomorrow night. However, the visibility curves do suggest that we will have, where you have perfect conditions, you will be able to see the moon or the crescent with the naked eye. So that's likely if you have the perfect conditions to do so. With that being said, I hope everyone has a blessed Eid, a blessed end to the month of Ramadan. We have tonight and tomorrow left for, if not another day for some, maybe after that. But for the most part, let us make the best of these last hours of Ramadan that we have as we get ready to embark on the first of Shawwal, which will start Eid al-Fitr. And be prepared if you need to pack your umbrella for those areas we discussed, weather-related events that's happening that could spoil outdoor activities. But for the most part, we discussed that a large portion of the United States will be dry on Eid day. So when you look back on this recording, you'll be able to see that as we went over that this evening. So inshallah, God willing. Thank you all for watching tonight. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. If we're not going to get them tonight, but we can get to them tomorrow. God willing, by tomorrow, and answer your questions as we approach. So with that being said, thank you everyone. Have a great night. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum.